everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this legal education commentary, and today will be the day I earn that subscription. For today's story, we are dealing with commentary from Dr. Warren Bloomfield, who has written an article in LGBTQ Nation arguing that laws that give parents the ability to be involved in their education are themselves child abuse. Having the parents be involved in their own children's education is itself a form of child abuse, says this apparent commentator on this issue. So let's go ahead and read this and try to see what it has to say. So this is courtesy of LGBTQ Nation. Parental rights in education laws are a form of child abuse. Commentary by Dr. Warren Bloomfield. Let's read this. Thursday, June 7th, a large van from Broward County, Florida, Public School Department, drove up in front of Stonewall National Museum and Archives in Fort Lauderdale. In the van, Broward County school officials had filed boxes of children's books on LGBTQ themes taken from county classrooms and school libraries for donation to the museums. So Florida passed a law dealing with what kind of material would be appropriate in its own school library. Someone has to make a decision about what's going to be appropriate or not within school libraries. And certain themes may or may not be appropriate for children. And so Florida passed a law saying these particular themes weren't appropriate. So there was a collection of books to donate to the museum. Okay. While county officials claimed the donations were a result of their attempts to clear shelves and office space for the accumulation of other subject matter, it's no mere coincidence that Florida's so-called, mind you, parental rights in education law, called by opponents Don't Say Gay law, which incidentally the law doesn't use the word gay even once, so it's a little bit hard to be the Don't Say Gay law when it doesn't use that word, but okay, was to take effect 2 weeks later. Passed primarily by Republicans in the state legislature and signed into law, the new law reads in part, quote, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that's not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. All right, so right away, the law doesn't prohibit all materials at all schools. The law prohibits classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties as it relates to sexual orientation, as it relates to kindergartners through third grade, which in the United States, by the way, is about ages 5 to 8, is typically what kindergarten to third grade is, ages 5 to 8. Before 5, you're typically in pre-K, or you're not in school at all. And of course, after 8, you're typically in a higher grade. So ages 5 to 8. The law simply says no sexual orientation related material for the 5 to 8-year-olds. And then after that, it should be used only as age appropriate. This doesn't sound that controversial right up front. I mean, I'm not sure why we need to talk about sexual orientation with the 5 to 8-year-olds. But some people think we apparently do, and the fact that we're not is really, really bad. Continuing on with this op-ed, so then, where did the Broward County School District donate its children's books on sexual orientation? Books like the classic Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, or the more current How to Get a Girlfriend? A step-by-step guide written for boys ages 5 to 6, which might be a little early to figure out how to get a girlfriend, but okay. Of course, school officials did not scour its book collections to prune its early education book collections that discuss or imply heterosexual or cisgender characters, themes, or images, since, as the assumption infers, heterosexuals do not have sexual orientation, and cisgenders do not represent a gender identity. Probably not within the meaning of the state legislature, no. School contexts as reproductions of larger society function on an overarching system of heteronormativity and heterosexism, in which heterosexuality is promoted as love, why homosexuality and bisexuality are reduced and seen only as sex, and transgender means sick. And together, LGBTQ represents in the public imagination the image of the children abusing people, predators, recruiters, and in current language of the political right, groomers. If you're the one arguing that you should be teaching sexual orientation and sexual identity to the 5 to 8-year-olds, I think something has gone horribly, horribly wrong with you. But apparently this is normal in the LGBTQ world, or they want it to be, or something, because this is a problem. Since January 2021, Education Week has found out that 42 states have either introduced bills in their legislature or taken other actions that would ban the teaching of critical race theory, which started, incidentally, as a graduate school topic. It started as a law school topic. And it was meant for very high-level academic discussion. And so maybe not appropriate for kindergarten. Or taking other actions that would ban the teaching or restrict how educators discuss racism, sexism, and LGBT issues in the classroom. I think that parents have a pretty profound interest in how their children are being taught in school, because the parents are the primary caregivers. Florida has positioned itself as the tip of the spear to cut and bleed to death school curriculum materials on the topic of race, gender, and sexual identity. For the 5 through 8-year-olds, this is the worst thing ever. This is a tragedy beyond tragedy. For the 5 through 8-year-olds, maybe not so much. With these particular topics, might be a little heavy for the 5 to 8-year-olds. For example, the Florida House has imposed new restrictions on how race is discussed in schools, colleges, and workplace. The bill went to the governor. A measure labeled individual freedom recently passed on a party line vote. It connects DeSantis' demand to stop the woke act, which diminishes what he terms liberal ideology that impacts the teaching of history in schools and circulating throughout corporate diversity training. There does seem to be quite a lot of that in corporate diversity training, based on my understandings, yes. Currently, as well, states are promoting legislation to restrict transgender rights in athletics by having sexes compete based on their biological characteristics, yes, or in accessing some health services by preventing kids from mutilating themselves, also yes, and others to limit overall LGBTQ protections, especially in schools. The children are in the primary care of their parents. The parents have the primary role in the raising of the children. The school's role is secondary. And so this complaint seems to not appreciate that, parents have the primary responsibility before the schools do. And once again, we're talking about 5 through 8-year-olds. At least 12 other state legislatures are now appropriating the Florida model and considering similar Don't Say Gay law. These states include a whole bunch of other states. Before signing the bill, DeSantis said at a press conference that teaching kindergartner-age kids that they can be whatever they want was inappropriate for children. I tend to agree. I tend to agree that this is not appropriate subject matter for kindergartners, no. It is not something that's appropriate for any place, he said, but especially not in Florida. We will make sure parents can send their kids to school to get an education, not indoctrination. The 5 through 8-year-olds. And after that, making sure it's age appropriate. This is apparently a bridge too far for the LGBTQ crowd. The article continues. Since Republicans have no genuine policy positions to offer, don't they? Like maybe let kids be kids and maybe not so much. Dredging all hateful and terrifying stereotypes they can muster to promote fear in the hearts and minds of potential voters. But by banning discussion of race, gender, and sexuality from classroom discussions, banning it from the discussions of the 5 through 8-year-olds. How evil does this person need to be? Like, yes, we need to have it in the 5 through 8-year-olds. That we need to have it at every age. We need to get them young as possible. That doesn't sound evil in any way, man. Several forms of social oppression came together in increasing numbers in laws on the extreme ways, primarily heterosexualism, cissexism, racism, and adultism, the latter defined by John Bell as behaviors and attitudes based on the assumption that adults are better than young people and entitled to act upon young people without their agreement. What the hell are you talking about? That's just called society. But this is a whole new concept. I'm literally learning about this concept for the first time with you in real time. Apparently, there's a form of societal oppression called adultism. Okay? And apparently, adultism is a form of oppression in which behaviors and attitudes based on the assumption that adults are better than young people and entitled to act upon young people without their agreement. Isn't it just called like society and parenting? The idea that better than isn't quite the right way to phrase it, because there's not better than, but more knowledgeable than, wiser than, more educated than, more better with more complete brains than. So I wouldn't say better than is exactly the right vernacular, but the idea is that adults are in a position to help young people. And then apparently it's bad, very, very bad, that they feel entitled to act upon young people without their agreement. Apparently this is adultism. The idea that adults have the ability to rear children. Wow. The bigotry is deep, my friends. The bigotry is deep. The bigotry is so deep, is the foundation of not only human society, but basically all animal society since the concept of the animal kingdom was invented, however many years ago that was, that adults raise children and basically teach them, and so forth and so on. This is how deep the heteronormativity and sexism goes. It goes so deep, it's permeating the entire concept of the animal kingdom since animal kingdom was first invented on the face of this earth. One of the litmus tests by which society can be judged is the way it treats young people, for this opens a window projecting how society operates generally. Within an adultist society, which seems like every society ever in the history of time, but okay, adults construct the rules with little or no input from the youth, which they force young people to follow. That just describes all of society, of all humankind, and the entire animal kingdom, basically forever. Even the terminology our society employs to refer to youth betrays a hierarchical power dynamic. Okay, for example, we refer to young people as kids, a term originally applied to young goats. By referring to youth as farm animals, what? Provides adults cover in controlling and maintaining unlimited power over humans. This article author has lost their mind. They apparently are against the concept of adults raising children and adults setting out rules for children and so forth and so on. This is a lot, man. Wow. Of course, parents and other adults have inherent responsibility of protecting young people from harming themselves and being harmed by others. But do they? Do they? Because because if they do that, then they're adulting. And of teaching them how to live and function society within our ever-changing global community. But do they? Because your premise seems to defy that. In Freudian terms, who's bringing Freud into this? In Freudian terms, we must develop a balance between individuals' unrestrained instinctual drives and restraints, repression, on these drives in service of maintaining society, civilization, and sustaining the life of the individual. This person has a PhD, people. We as a society, nonetheless, must set a line demarcating protection from control, teaching from oppression, and minimal and fundamental repression from what Herbert Mouse terms surplus repression that goes over and beyond what's necessary for protection of the individual and a smooth functioning society and enters into the realm of domination, control, and oppression. What is it that you're trying to do in these K-12 schools, by the way? Other than that, you just want it to be you the ones that are doing it instead of the parents. Adultism, heterosexism, cissexism, racism, and other forms of oppression individually and in combination operate as a continuum from subtle to extreme. Oh, there it is, that implicit bias thing again that we all know and love. Chasing ghosts. Regarding adultism, this continuum includes adults ignoring or neglecting young people, to statements like children should be seen and not heard. You're too young to do that, and just grow up, and when you're living in my house, you will follow my rules. Circumscribed or qualified love, corporal punishment, eviction from home, to sexual and other violent assaultive actions. Yeah, one of those things is definitely not like the others. You're grouping in the idea that adults would want to raise their children with sexual and violent assaultive actions. Wow. To withhold important age-appropriate information across grades. Again, 5 through 8 years old. 5 through 8-year-olds is the ones we're withholding from. To withhold important age-appropriate information across grades and across the curriculum can be seen as a form of surplus repression. I see it as a form of child abuse. Keeping the sexualized material away from the 5 to 8-year-olds in the classroom is a form of child abuse, says this author. They are quite the beautician, are they not? So that brings us to the end of this commentary from Dr. Warren Bloomerfield, who is apparently a master beautician and would like to exercise their beautician arts upon the children to make sure that they are appropriately taken care of, and seems particularly upset with not having materials reflecting sexuality to the 5 through 8-year-olds and keeping these materials away from them is a form of child abuse, says this beautician. Well, okay, that's a lot. It's hard to say much more than that because it's just Poe's law in force. It's impossible to create a parody that can't be considered the real thing because, yeah, this strikes you as a parody, but it's just real. So, yeah, they want to make sure that the 5 through 8-year-olds have access to all the LGBTQ books in the world. That's super, super important. Anything that prevents that, including parents, is super, super bad. And that brings us to the end of discussion of this article. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.